Thank you so much for joining us today. What I can say is that we are at the cusp of transformation. India is at the cusp of making history, provided the bills get passed in the parliament in a few hours from now. But I want to begin by asking you, Ms. Vaishali, what does this moment really mean to you as a woman? We've been talking about women reservation for a very long time, and it might, become a reality very soon. So what does this moment mean to you, and why is it so unique?
Sure. First of all, it's an absolute pleasure to be here to comment on this very important topic. And honestly, I think this moment is momentous. It's really important for not only people like me in the corporate sector or women who aspire to go to the parliament, but also to the young girls who are there, who watch what's happening around them. And I feel legislation is one thing. If I could talk about the educated young girl, they really care about it. Because, positive legislation really empowers. You feel the sense of, okay, it's my right? I'm equal to the other gender. And it has a very, very important impact on thinking young girls who want to be confident out there. So I think it's transformational. I think it sends a positive signal to young women and to corporate leaders like myself and to people who aspire to get to the parliament. I think a reservation of this sort is long overdue. It's been about 27 years, I think, since, and 7 times it's been gone and not been successful. So I really hope we are able to execute it. I think it does take somebody who's very determined to get these things done. You really need believers. I chair the sustainability function in my company, Renew, and it's clear to me things like sustainability and diversity and inclusion, it is inherent, it's in your gut. Like either you believe it, you get it, or you don't. And I think we are quite fortunate to have a Prime Minister who really believes that women, it's not only about women development, as we saw in the G20, it's really about women-led development, which leads to economic growth, right? And it is for that purpose, for us to be able to get on to the path of a $10 trillion economy, that we need women. Without women, we are leaving half the population, behind. And if I may add, perhaps the more intellectual, as we see in our 10th and 12th grades, that we end up doing quite well, but because of the ecosystem, we do get left behind. We do need a structure where there's more equity for us to come at par with, I would say, the other half of the population.
So you're seeing political will this time, and there are a lot of arguments from the opposition side as well. Delimitation arguments specifically, do you see it as a derailment ploy?
See, I don't, politics is politics. You have opposition for a reason, and it's healthy for the opposition to ask questions, to put the guardrails which are required for us to be able to move ahead in a disciplined manner. So I think questions need to be asked, and I'm glad they're being asked. But at the end of the day, my expectation of this is to really get this bill passed. I think that is important. That is the important task in hand. And execution is important. And then the journey begins after that, right? It is after that that we see a lot of the sort of capacity building which is required, the sponsorship which is required to really build the pipeline and to deepen it. So, yes, of course, questions will be asked and we must have answers to them. And just like in the corporate sector, as a leader, as a CEO, you have to hear the sort of feedback from inside. You have to take feedback from outside, from the board, and then you can move ahead with your decisions and your vision. So if we are doing that, and if that's happening, I hope it's healthy, but I hope it's not a deterrent and not a roadblock.
Okay. Let's also try and understand what this delay has, caused us. What has been the impact of this delay on the India story? Because if you're talking about 50% of our population, we're also talking about 50% of our country's potential that has not been used, properly. I was just looking at some data. There are some 74 women MPs in Lok Sabha today. And out of 4,100 odd MLAs that we have across India, there are just 450 women. So in your opinion, how has this women power deficit really impacted the India story?
Sure. No, and I think that's a great question. And I'd like to borrow from the experiences of countries from around the world. And let's look at Rwanda. A country which has 60%, the highest representation of parliamentarians anywhere in the world. And what one saw there was that as the sort of, number of women in parliament increased, the impact on your environment-related social issues, education-related issues and policies became way more expansive and, way more implemented, which means that the socio-economic development of a country benefits from women-led development, right? You look at the Nordic countries, you look at Norway, and you look at Sweden, it's the same story. There were regulatory triggers in the 80s which doubled the representation from 20% to 40%, right? What did that do? That made for a much more sort of socially inclusive growth for those countries. And you know what? These are structural changes. Once they happen, they become the new normal and they're not reversible. And the new normal leads for a more economic, social, and now if I could say environmentally inclusive growth. And I think in India that's the case. We've seen when we had the Panchayat sort of bill which was passed, there were lots of questions raised that, there is of course a little bit of a dummy system and people are, kind of game playing the legislation. And that may be the case, and that will always be the case. There will always be some outliers, but there are also positive outliers where women benefit, confident women come in, they make the impact. There is as I said, very impactful for young women to have that hope and aspiration. The other thing I want to say as a corporate representative is that when my board talks to me about these things, or if I talk to investors in my investor meetings, and it's like, okay, fine, we have a goal of 30% board diversity by 2030, but we already have a 40% diversity at our board level, right? So that's a good situation. But let's assume, for the sake of this conversation, we had 20% and the parliament had 33%. The question would be, your panchayat has a certain representation, your parliament does. What about you guys? So there is a little bit of a trickle effect which leads to positive nudge for this sort of engagement to percolate from the top of the parliament is the absolute top of the sort of system to the next level, and then it percolates through the system for more effective engagement performance. It's not inclusion for the sake of inclusion. It's inclusion for decision making, for positive outcomes. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to.
I'll ask you about the possible benefits that you see if we have more women in the decision-making process in just a bit. But before that, since you mentioned about why it is really important, you quoted some data as well. In our country, every listed company is also supposed to have at least one woman director. And this rule came in, I think, around 2013. And recently, there was a reply that was given in the parliament in the month of March only. Out of 708 government-owned companies, only 529 have at least one woman director. 179 government-owned companies still do not have that. So even if the policy is there, even if this crucial bill gets passed today, I mean, what's the guarantee really that by 2029 we will have 33% women in the parliament? I mean, what about the implementation phase? I mean, for that as well, a lot of work needs to be done, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that is, as they say, devil lies in the details, and the details are in execution. You can have the biggest sort of visionary and great plans, but if you don't have a plan to get it done, it doesn't work. And so to come back to your question on, a lot of the government companies don't have independent directors, I feel that those who get left behind, get left behind. I think it's just the smarter lot who move ahead and move
Is it because we don't have enough women leaders in that sector who can take those positions? I mean, what could be the reason?
Yeah, I have a strong allergic reaction to that comment, though it's not 100% wrong. But the fact remains that we on boards settle for mediocre men, right? At the cost of not the top end women to get them on board. So when you have a woman, I've been a part of that, not only in my company, but outside as well. So the conversations to get a woman board are so stringent because the general assumption is that they are not capable or competent. And that is totally wrong. And so therefore we are able to settle for certain sets of men. So yes, I would agree with you that it's not that we have a very robust pipeline. And to a certain extent, it's got to do with the leaky pipeline. Between the age group of, let's say now, because, people are getting into that whole family sort of cycle a little bit later. So let's say from 30 to 35 or 20, their women start falling off the sort of radar screen because of their commitments for the care economy, either for their children, their parents, and that continues till 40. And so therefore you do have a limited, and you are recycling the same women, and that is not healthy. So we really need to commit as corporates ourselves to build that pipeline, to come up with policies which encourage women, mentorship programs, sponsorship programs, and all of that. And I'm really optimistic that with bills like this, we can actually have reverse supply from, senior legislators at some point to serve on boards, perhaps when they're out of, I would say power, and, so there is a huge sort of linkage between policy making and corporate agenda, which can be advanced together by the supply and demand, which will work between both sides, from corporates to policy making and from policy making to corporates as well.
So the sense I get is that, of course, there is intention, as it was said in the parliament yesterday, niyat hai. You've got the right set of policies as well. But then how do you really change the mindset? That can't change overnight. I mean, today, even if the bills are passed, it's not that tomorrow onwards everything is going to change for women in the country.
No, I mean, we're not living in an ideal world, and hence all these issues around the current sort of implementing it right away and, kind of sort of waiting for the census and then having the sort of, I would say, disruption in the balance between the North and the South. And rightly speaking, folks who followed the governance for a tighter population control should not have to pay the price. And so I believe in good debates, and these are, I think, good debates to have. I think mindsets get changed with time, but with structure, legislation, and then the power of, as I said, outcomes which come into place, I think we will have to give ourselves time, because even in countries, as I was saying, whether it was Rwanda or even Sweden, etc., it took them a decade to double their numbers. So this doubling game does take time, and I think it's important, like we have a target of 30% by 2030. Let's say about 7 years ago, we were all of 7%. As I speak to you today, we have a D&I ratio of about 18%, which is higher than the 11% industry average. And we have a stretch goal. So I just set my goals yesterday with my CHRO. And, we said, though we've only inched up 2 percentage points from last year, I want to double it to 4%. So when you have women in leadership, they push with logic, with belief and conviction and determination, not only for the sake of numbers, but also moving the ecosystem to make it possible. How is that done? In a company, what gets done is we have an infrastructure kind of a business, so we need hostels, we need cars, we need all of that infrastructure to make it possible for women to be there. That's a commitment we need to move from parity and equality to equity.
And if I want to, ask you, women's empowerment in India will remain incomplete till, if I ask you to complete this sentence, what will you like to say?
Sorry, say that again.
If I want you to complete a sentence, women's empowerment in India will remain incomplete until we do what? What is it that we really need to do? I mean, it's really good to, talk about we've moved from women empowerment to women-led development, but for it to truly happen in the country, for it to truly move from that policy level to, the reality on the ground, what is it that we really need?
So to complete your sentence, unless we believe that engaging women is for our overall betterment, social, economic, cultural, performance, all of it. And if we believe that, I think, we'll all be in it together. And then we'll have the men parliamentarians step down and say, aap lijiye, meri seat lijiye.
Do you see that happening?
I wish it would happen, but I am not very optimistic.
What is going to be your one message to the parliamentarians who are going to be voting in just a few hours from now?
Vote kar dijiye.
But they feel that, maybe what the government is doing is not right. Government is trying to confuse the people by linking women reservation issue to delimitation, to the census exercise. So, we're still waiting to see whether it'll actually become a reality or not. But hypothetically, if it does not happen, what would it mean for a country like India that aims to become Viksit by 2047?
Yeah, it'll be awfully disappointing because it's not only about, who leads India. It's about how India leads. I think that is what we are looking at, right? The way we will lead would be seen different. We have a president who is a woman. We've had a prime minister who's a woman. We've had many sort of women heroes or sheroes, as I like to call them. But it is going to be disappointing. But perhaps the 8th time, we keep trying till we get it right. But I think it's super critical. It's important. We're living in a different country, in a different world, in a different century. And 20th century ways will not work in the 21st century, where we are living in a world which is transforming so fast with AI and so on. These are things which are very basic. Having women, in parliament, 33% is not a huge, tall ask. And so we must all support it and bat for it.
Well, we can just hope that the parliamentarians are listening. Thank you very much. Wonderful speaking with you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.